I want to make a town on the Falkland Islands. Now you might be saying things like, what, why, or that intro hurt my eyes, Jesus Christ Rice, how could you do that to me? But there's no time for answers. The Falkland Islands are a group of large islands that are part of the United Kingdom in south of South America. They have a small population of around 3,000 people inhabiting a landmass the size of Flanders, which is 7 million people. The climate there is a bit sucky at certain times, and that's because it rains slightly less often than in Belgium and the wind is a bit more tense. The temperature is also fairly cold there, so I would definitely recommend you wear a jacket and gloves if you want to go outside. Something that is also important is the amount of sunlight you get every day, because it is a phenomenon in places like northern Scandinavia and Antarctica that the sun can be up for less than an hour a day during the winter and almost non-stop during the summer, which is hell if you struggle with seasonal depression or want to have a normal day-night schedule. But luckily the Falklands should have a fairly good amount of sunlight a day. According to this data, it should be comparable to Belgium actually, and that is livable enough for me. Cloudiness also doesn't seem to be too much of a problem, although it is a bit more cloudy than in Belgium. These statistics don't paint the best or worst picture imaginable, but humans are known to inhabit regions in much colder, windier, darker, cloudier and rainier environments, but I obviously wouldn't want it to be barely survivable, so I'd probably have to travel there a couple of times to see if it's actually livable. Now you could say, why don't you look at street view images, but have you actually tried to do that yourself? There are only a few pictures in the capital with almost nothing anywhere else. For the rest of the video, let's assume that the islands are livable. What other important things are there to know before deciding to make a town on the Falkland Islands? Well, first off, does the government actually allow people to make a settlement there? And I should probably have emailed them about that. But let's just go with the assumption that it's okay. Where would I want to make the town? I would preferably have the town be within an hour of driving away from Port Stanley, since Port Stanley is the only major supply hub on the islands and would most likely need to be traveled to quite a lot during the early stages of trying to make a town. It is also important to me for it to have quick access to the sea, since building inland would make you dependent on other towns in order to get imports and tourism, so the town would most likely be a port or very near a previously established port. I would also want to look into the possibility of making it a town without easy access for cars, having some sort of ring around the town where cars are allowed to park and travel, but have the residential and commercial areas where people walk removed from car access. But there should also be an option for a permit to be granted for cars to be in the residential areas in case anyone needs to move or something needs to be driven away. Another thing I would want for the town is to have some sort of monument or a small castle. I feel like that would help create an identity for the town, and it would be a fun place to celebrate holidays or to visit for the small amount of tourists or travelers that come around each year. I'm also considering maybe having like a small stone wall around waist height or maybe slightly taller that goes around the perimeter of the town, because an old medieval looking wall would be awesome and cool. and yeah, woo. And a bit of a side tangent, but I did see walls like that in GeoWizard's most recent line mission, where he traveled through Wales in a straight line and came across quite a few ancient stone walls, and those walls looked so amazingly beautiful alongside the gorgeous Welsh terrain. It is so good. I would also want most houses to be less than a 10-minute walk from the town square, but most preferably 5 minutes or less, which should be possible for a town of a few thousand people. The town will probably be in the style of European city design and not the way more wasteful building style that has been used in Port Stanley. Having the houses more close together with more defined and organic streets that have proper intent. I'm also curious in the possibility of placing the buildings in a way where you could potentially partially negate the strength of the wind. Like when there is a large gust of wind, but after turning the corner it's suddenly extremely calm, because of the buildings being in the way of the direction the wind is coming from. But I'd need to find someone with more know-how on that before I can make a definite call on that being a possibility. There is one small problem though that I haven't mentioned yet. Argentina. You may or may not know about the Falklands War, a war which Argentina started, claiming the islands were theirs and proceeding to invade them, whereafter the United Kingdom took back the islands and won the conflict. Sounds like that's something not to worry about anymore, right? Pretty much, yeah. It is fairly unlikely for another conflict to happen. Something that is absolutely hilarious though is if you go on Google Maps and look at reviews at stores or other establishments on the islands, almost all of them are partially review bombed by salty Argentinians, and the reviews are genuinely hilarious. But my point of all of this is that there is still a non-0% chance for a second Argentine war, which I'm personally not too afraid of because of how unlikely it is, but it's still something to keep in the back of your mind. This is step 1 of the Falkland Project. More steps may or may not follow. Let me know what you think and have a good supper. See ya.